Hey, Mark, thanks for your time, man. Hope you're having a good day. How's it going?
Another day in paradise, my guy. I'm just, you know, getting up and rolling.
I was talking to one of my guys here in the studio, and I was like, I could probably do 2 hours with Mark Cuban, mostly because I'm very interested in different parts of your life. Massive sports fan. I think what you're doing with prescription medicine, and so there are all these areas, Shark Tank, which
Yep.
we're going to get to all of them. But if someone were just to come up to you today and be like, hey, man, what do you want to talk about? Like, what even do you want to talk about as a person? What's your favorite thing to talk about right now?
Well, right now, I mean, considering our how we got connected on this, probably my guy Kevin Mack and the song we wrote together, which is what people have no clue about. And it came about via Shark Tank, which is the craziest part.
So when you write the song, do you guys sit in a room and kind of hash it out? How'd the songwriting come together?
He came on Shark Tank with a company called Tick Pick. We did a deal, and I was in Nashville, and we were just talking and talking and talking about random stuff. And I'm like, okay, you're gonna laugh at this, but I got this idea for a country song that me and my friends have always talked about. And he's like, okay, I'm always looking for ideas. Tell me. And so me and my buddies, we'd go out to bars, and when we were in our 20s and in early 30s, and it would be like someone would come up to us and it'd be like, "Aren't you that one girl from that one night from that one bar?" Just all guys have these stupid things that they say, and he was like, "That's a cool idea for the start around a song." And so we just started working from there and talking, and then we finished it up going back and forth via email, believe it or not, and then we get on the phone, and then we got together again for Shark Tank and finished it up.
And how'd you feel about it the first time you heard it?
I loved it, man, because we went back and forth a couple times for modifications, but it was like, you know how guys get together and they're drinking and they're saying we should do this, and how cool would it be if we did that? And just to hear it all put together was amazing.
Let's talk about the guitar pick for a second because it's a pretty brilliant idea. I play a little bit, as in I do like comedy music, but yeah, I lose picks. Everybody loses picks all the
Everybody.
time. Yeah, it's if you play guitar, it's like you need it. It's almost like a Major League Baseball team. You need to have a ton of baseballs to have a game. You need a ton of picks to have a show. So
Yep.
the idea, he comes in, just kind of give me the idea from the start.
So it's a thing called Tick Pick, Tikpik, and it allows you to take your pick and just put it to the base of the guitar, right? So you're playing, you're doing whatever, and you don't need to pick, and you just pop it on the base of the guitar, and it sticks, and it's there when you need it. And if you accidentally drop one, you got two, three, four lined up. And I'm a three chord guitar player, C, D, and E, and that's it. And so it was just like, okay, this is fun. It's just easy to grab, and it's always right there, and they're not expensive, and you don't lose them.
You know what's interesting? It's one of those ideas where you're like, how did someone not already invent this, right? And secondly, it reminds me of like a ball marker when you play golf, and now they have it magnetizes to like that thing you wear on your hat.
Yeah.
It's the same
Yep.
kind of feeling where it's like, how was this already not invented? But I think that's part of why it's so brilliant. Did you think the same thing when you heard the idea where you're like, how did this not already exist?
Yeah, because it's kind of like, in Shark Tank, when someone comes in, and my first thought is, why didn't I think of that? Then I know it's a good deal, right? And so I didn't expect this to be like $100 million business, but it just made perfect sense. And Kevin is just like a good guy. You want to deal with an entrepreneur that's got a good heart, that cares about people and customers. And then when you have a great product and you pull those pieces together, it was really easy to do the deal. And they've just been blown up. They're in guitar centers. We're doing deals with all these brands. I mean, and Kevin's a good sales rep, man. He's out there hustling, playing our song. It's a lot of fun. This is one of those businesses where fun meets business, and that's when the magic happens.
And this is it for you on Shark Tank, right? Final season that they're airing now.
Yeah, and actually it just finished, and so I'm done. They're actually shooting for season 17 right now, and it's kind of weird that I'm not there, but yeah, it was time to move on.
Was it an emotional final, not even on camera, but like when you leave the last time, or was it like, I'm just kind of ready to get out of here?
No, it was emotional because shooting the show is fun and it's easy and the deals are cool. And I did the show because it sends the message to America, particularly in these times, that the American dream is still alive and well. But the relationships are really built with the crew, the staff, everybody behind the scenes, the other sharks. I mean, we've been doing this together for 15 years. You work with somebody for 15 years, you're going to develop relationships. And that was the hard part.
You also sold a large stake of the Mavs. So it's like Mark Cuban is leaving this, but I feel like you've never been more present, at least like on all my feeds, right? Like I'm seeing you more, but everyone's like, he's doing less. So what are you doing less, or have you just moved and are you doing it in different places?
Yeah, different places. I'm doing, less on some of the things I did for a long time, so I can go on and do more of the things that I think are going to be important. For the longest time, it was just like, okay, the Mavs, what a unique experience, what fun. I'm a basketball junkie. I love the game. I still play all those things. But it was 23 years, and then Shark Tank 15 years. And it's like, is this what I wanted to do the rest of my life? And it's not that I didn't love either one of them, but my kids, were 15, 18, and 21. And, my middle daughter's graduating from high school. My oldest daughter is getting ready to be a senior in college. My son is going to be a sophomore in high school. And shooting Shark Tank and traveling with the Mavs, I felt like I was missing things, and I don't want to miss any more. And then, we'd also started costplusdrugs.com, and that was having such a huge impact on people, saving lives, saving people tons of money on their medications. And, it was just one of those things that I felt like if I was going to create a mission for myself right now, was it going to be, okay, what was I going to put first? A great season on Shark Tank, winning another championship, or changing healthcare for the better? Because no one looks at healthcare in this country and says the economic side anyways is great, right? It's just perfect in the United States. And, we've really had an impact, and I think I can have a whole lot more impact.
Cost Plus Drugs is super interesting to me, and I've been following you in this journey. I grew up pretty much in poverty, and I talk about people having to choose between medicine and food a lot of times because
all the time,
and you don't know about it because those people's stories, it's not like that's on the news. That's not a sensational headline that you hear, but it's happening all over America all the time. So when I heard what you guys' goal was, I started following because, again, that was a big part of my life. We didn't even go to the doctor because we knew if you went to the doctor, that was going to cost money. So let's just not even find out if you're sick or not, because then we may not be able to eat or pay rent or whatever it was. So
trust me, I know exactly the feeling.
So then what's the genesis of Cost Plus Drugs, and when did it become a reality you could actually try something like this?
So I got a cold email from a Dr. Alex Oshmayansky in 2018 or 19, I forget exactly. And he wanted to do this thing called a compounding pharmacy for drugs that were in short supply. So believe it or not, there are drugs like pediatric cancer drugs that are injectable in hospitals that go on short supply because the companies that manufacture them want them to be on short supply so they can manufacture more. Charge more. And so he emailed me telling me about this. I'm like, well, that's a good idea, but there's got to be more to this. And that was right when the pharma bro was going to jail after having jacked up the price of this drug, like 7,500%. And I started asking him, I'm like, look, Alex, why is he able to get away with this? And it became very apparent very quickly that the problem was there's no transparency. You talk about not being able to afford medications and being afraid to go to the doctor. And a big part of that is because you have no idea what a medication costs. We've all seen it or experienced it or talked to people, that go to the pharmacy not knowing what it's going to cost them for a medication that the doctor prescribed. When you think about it, when you go to the doctor and they say you need a med, they don't say, can you afford it? Here's the price. They say, what pharmacy do you use? Good luck. And so to me, it was like, okay, well, if you don't know all this information, why? Why has nobody just been completely transparent on medication pricing? And he was like, I don't know. And so I said, well, let's do this. Let's see if we can create a company that is absolutely transparent, that people can trust and know if they can afford it and hopefully be more able to afford it. So went out and got the URL costplusdrugs.com and made the decision that when you go to costplusdrugs.com, you put in the name of the medication, and now we're up to thousands of different SKUs that we carry. And if we carry it, we don't have all of them yet, we're working on it, but if we carry it, we show you what it costs us to buy. And so our exact cost for that medication. We mark it up 15%. That's it. because, why 15%? Because I thought that would be fair. And then if it's mail order, it's $5 for a pharmacist to review and $5 for shipping and handling. And that's it. And so by doing it that way, we were able to cut the cost of medications for people like 98%. Like I can't even tell you how many times I've got emails or even people walking up to me on the street just hugging me. I was in Nashville actually to see Kevin, and this woman walked up and just started crying and hugging me and told me the story about how her family was saving thousands of dollars per month using costplusdrugs.com. And they, not only were not rationing, they couldn't afford to buy it at all. And now they could afford their medication. Or, I had one not long ago where somebody emailed me and said, look, I have cancer. It just is what it is. And I was getting ready to make the decision that I'm not going to buy any more medications because when I'm gone, it's going to be on our credit card and my wife is going to be obligated to pay that credit card bill. But we found out about costplusdrugs.com, went to costplusdrugs.com, and instead of it being $900 a month, it was like $43 a month. You saved our lives. I mean, when you hear that kind of stuff, I mean, if that's not motivating and, worthy of attention, I don't know what is.
You talk about the doctor emailing you, and this is a story that I've been able to tell about you for a long time, and it's been over 15 years. So you may not remember the story because I'm sure you've done this 100 times or more, but I had a friend, because we lived in Austin for a long time, like 12, 13 years. And she was like going to her first Mavs game ever, and she just emailed your email address. And you actually responded and met her out front with tickets of the arena. And she was like, Mark Cuban, the freaking owner, met me and handed me tickets to the game. It was her and her dad. Like, you do stuff like that a lot. I'm not making that up. You've done that before, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I will tell people, and they're like, there's no chance that Mark Cuban. I was like, guys, I swear to you, he met her out front and handed her tickets. How do you know whose emails to read? How do you look at all the emails?
You just get a sense of it. I don't do a lot of phone calls. I don't do many meetings at all. I try to do everything via email because it gives me a tickler file and it gives me a history, right? I can go back and search for things. And like, if you told me her email address, I could probably find that email. But having read so many of them, you kind of get a feel for what's real or not. And, it's typically the longer the backstory, the less likely it is to be true or necessary. But when somebody is like short and to the point, hey, we can't afford it. My mom and my dad, it's been their dream to go to a Mavs game. If you ask me for a Lakers game, I'm probably not going to respond. If you say we'll take any game at all, we just want to go and experience it together, I'm going to be your guy. And, and I'm going to get you those tickets and you're going to come to a Mavs game. We're all going to have fun.
What was life like for you at like 8 years old? Like, I'm just trying to picture the young version of you and how this presentation, what we see now, like, how did that get formed?
I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My dad did upholstery on cars. My mom did odd jobs. Had two younger brothers. Nothing, we weren't poor, but we weren't rich. That's for certain. And I was always, my parents were always like, if you want something, you got to earn it. My dad was one of, typical, blue collar worker, up at 6 to work at 7, home at 5. On the easy chair by 6, watching whatever on television, asleep by 9. And, we just had a normal family, but they were always like, if you want better, you've got to earn it. And so as long as I can remember, like I was taking baseball cards and going to the park in the neighborhood and reselling those baseball cards to make money to buy more baseball cards. Or like one time I wanted to get a new pair of basketball shoes, and my dad was playing poker with his buddies at the house. And I came in and, to grab a donut or whatever, and they were drinking, playing poker. And I'm like, Dad, I want a new pair of basketball shoes. And he looks at me, he goes, you see those shoes in your feet? They look like they work. When you have a job, you can buy whatever you want. I'm like, Dad, I'm 12 years old. How am I going to get a job? And one of his buddies piped up, I got these trash bags, boxes of trash bags that you can sell in the neighborhood. I'm like, Dad, can I? He's like, sure. And so literally, I was 12 at the time. I was going door to door, probably the world's first and only garbage bag route. But I'd be like, going to my neighbors going, hi, my name is Mark. I'm your neighbor. Do you use garbage bags? And, once I learned I could sell and I became confident at it, then that kind of just set the tone for me to be an entrepreneur, because that's the foundation of being an entrepreneur. With your own show, right? If you're not selling, you're not on air for all that long. And so it was the same with me. I learned how to sell. That gave me confidence to start my own companies. And from then on, I was a lousy employee, but I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur.
How did it end up in tech for you then? Because broadcast.com and the legendary story of you selling that, how did that end up with you pursuing a career in tech or just creating something?
So I moved to Dallas. I went to Indiana, had a couple random jobs. I moved to Dallas and I got a job at night working as a bartender / barback. And then, I was searching for a regular job. I was living 6 guys in a 3-bedroom apartment in a place in Dallas called The Village, which is the world's largest apartment complex. And so I had 5 roommates, worked at night, but I wanted, a career. And I was 24 and got a job working for this company called Your Business Software. And they're like, what do you know about computers? I'm like, not much, but, I'm a learner and I'll read the manuals and I'll prove to you. And if not, you fire me. And so they gave me a shot. I was doing really well until about 9 months later when I got fired because I wanted to pick up a check that was going to give me a $1,500 commission so I could move out of the hellhole that I lived in with 5 roommates. Called my boss and said, look, I want to go pick up this check. He's like, no, you're supposed to sweep the floor, wipe down the windows, and open up the store that I worked at that sold software. So I made the executive decision. And this guy named Michael Humecki, who was my boss, when I came back with the check, because I made the decision, if I showed up with a $15K check, 1,500 of it was for me, then, he would be thrilled, fired me on the spot. And so, that was like, okay, I'm a lousy employee, but, I'm good at tech. And I started this company called Micro Solutions, and I had no money. I found one of my prospects. I went to them, a company called Architectural Lighting, and I said, look, I'm broke, but if you advance me the $500 for the software that you need, it costs me $250. I'll make it work no matter what. And that was the start of my tech entrepreneurial journey, where that company, Micro Solutions, I went 7 years without a vacation. But by the time I took that vacation, we had, 80 employees, 30 some million in sales, and I ended up selling it to H&R Block. And then from there, I was retired. I bought a lifetime pass on American Airlines, partied like a rock star, just went all over the world. But I would get together with one of my buddies from Indiana, Todd Wagner. And this is when the internet was just starting to happen in the mid 90s. And it was like, look, Mark, you're the tech geek now. My company, Micro Solutions, did networking and systems integration, and I learned to write software and all this other stuff. But he's like, you can figure out how we can listen to Indiana University basketball in Dallas, can't you? And I'm like, I can try. So we started this company called AudioNet, which turned into broadcast.com in 95. And it was the very first streaming company. It was crazy because, it seems to make so much sense now, but it was so complicated back then. And we were able to make it work. And we were everything that YouTube was, Pandora, Spotify, you name it, we podcasts, we had, the Dan and Scott show, which is probably the world's first podcast in 95. It was just all this stuff. And then we sold it to Yahoo for, first we went public in 1998, and it was the largest IPO in the history of the stock market at the time. And then we sold it to Yahoo in 2000 for $5.7 billion in stock.
So I have 4 final questions for you, and I want to follow up on that one. Is that when you sell that company, did you already have in your mind that you wanted to buy a sports franchise? Was it specifically the Mavericks? Were you building closer to that? Or was it, now that I have a whole bunch of money, I'm going to buy that team?
That was the second, right? So I'm at the game, the start of the 99-2000 season with my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and I'm looking around. It's the first game, right? We're undefeated. And I'm like, there should be energy in the building, and there was none. And I'm like, I can do a better job than this. And so I talked to my sales rep, who put me connected me with Ross Pro Jr., the owner at the time. And within 4 weeks, we had a deal. And it was just like, oh my God. I mean, it had never crossed my mind. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a goal. But I was such a basketball junkie. I had season tickets for, 7 years at that point to a team that sucked, And I was just like, wow, what a great opportunity. And, the rest is history. That was January of 2000. Then I bought it. And I was a majority owner until December of 23.
I very much associate you and Shark Tank. To me, I feel like you're what brought me to Shark Tank to watch all of the when they show the 10 episodes in a row. Like I'm in for like 4 of them over on like random CNBC or where they're like, it's one of the only binge worthy shows that I'll just sit and watch. When they approached you with the idea, what was the approach? How did that conversation start?
It was just like, hey, come on audition for this show. And literally they had me audition. I haven't said this a lot, but like they called me up like last minute, like, when are you going to be in LA? I'm like, I'm in LA now. Can you come in tomorrow morning and do this audition for Shark Tank? And they had already sent me DVD. So, I'd watched some of the show and I'd seen it when it aired some too. And I'm like, okay, I can come in the morning. But as it turned out, I had gone out the night before with my buddies and I was just so hungover. But I had to audition and they would just pepper me with questions and scenarios and, generic, scenarios that might come up with entrepreneurs. And I just cranked right through it. And the next thing you know, I was a guest shark. So this was the second season of Shark Tank. Jeff Foxworthy was on for 3 episodes as a guest. And then I was on for 3 episodes as a guest. And the show on ABC was like, one time it would be on a Tuesday night. The next time it'd be on a Sunday night, replacing Desperate Housewives when they had a night off. And I'm like, this show is not going to last. So just go on there. It's a network show. There's going to be a lot of people watching. You should just have fun. And so I just went for it and just decided I was going to be aggressive and have fun. And boom, it just started taking off. And they invited me back for season 3 to be a full-time shark.
What's crazy is revisionist history in my mind is that you invented and created that show because you were the most popular and your face was who I identified with on that show. It's crazy that you weren't even on season 1.
No, not at all. Right. And, on CNBC, when they show all the replays, like whenever they show something from season 1, people are like, wait, what? How come you're not on there? I'm like, I wasn't on season 1 and I was only on, 3 episodes of season 2, but I didn't miss until just now. They're filming right now for season 17. I had never missed an episode.
Dang. Final 2 questions. In your house, what's your favorite like personal picture? Like what's on the picture?
My family pictures, right? There's one. I played in a celebrity baseball game and I hit a double to drive in the winning runs. And then, I came off the field and my son, who was he's 15 now, so he's probably 8 years old then, came running out and jumped into my arms. And there's a picture of him in my arms, after, just coming out to celebrate with me. And that definitely is my all-time favorite.
And my final question is with the song, which we played a little bit of before you came on.
Oh, cool.
And secondly, with the pick, a lot of guys will transition into country music. Is this what do we have here? New career? New Mark Cuban, songwriter?
It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's so funny because when we did a little bit for Shark Tank where we played the song, I wasn't going to sing. I was just going to sit there and bob my head. But I kept on playing the song to see if I could get in tune. So I actually sang on it as well. So, if Kevin and I can get this one to work, One Girl, One Night, One Bar, whatever. I'm ready for number 2 because it was fun. It was something completely different than anything I've ever done. I'm so used to the right brain business that this was just completely different. And so I'm game. If Kevin will have me and wants to do more, I'm down for sure.
But you have rhythm. Didn't you teach dance lessons back in college?
Oh, yeah.
That was the move. Hey,
let me just tell you, back then in Indiana, I got paid $25 an hour to teach sorority girls how to dance. And it was the best job ever. I'd quit everything to take that job again.
Mark, we really appreciate it. The pick, it's an excellent idea. Kevin Mack, I don't know why everybody didn't already have it. And it's a great invention. I can't believe that pick wasn't already invented. So good luck. I hope it makes you tons of money. Tick Pick is the name of it. The final season of Shark Tank and Cost Plus Drugs, which I think is changing and hopefully will change the world in a really, really positive way. Mark, thank you for your time, and we really appreciate it.
Thanks for the interview. This is fun, Bobby. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me back on again.
All right, Mark. Good to see you, buddy.